What if a car could outrun sound? Not in the sky at 30,000 feet, but here, on the ground. What if a machine could create a sonic boom that rolled across the desert? For decades, this was just a theory, a dream for engineers and madmen. But on October 15, 1997, one team, one car, and one pilot proved it was possible. This is the Thrust Supersonic Car, or ThrustSSC, a fighter jet on land. At 16.5 meters, it's longer than a bus. And it boasts the power equivalent to 145 Formula One cars. This isn't just a car. It's an engineering marvel, built for one single purpose, to break the sound barrier. Behind this monster were two men: Richard Noble, the visionary, the project leader, and the previous fastest man on Earth, obsessed with the idea of speed; and Andy Green, an active Royal Air Force pilot, a man who understood supersonic flight because it was his job. He would have to become the first and only person to officially drive a car faster than sound. This is the story of how the dream of a few engineers and one pilot forever changed our perception of speed. It all started with Richard Noble. In 1983, he was the one behind the wheel of the Thrust II, setting the world land speed record at 1,018 kilometers per hour, or 633 miles per hour. But Noble knew he had hit a wall. His machine was at its limit. The next step wasn't just to go a little faster. The next step was the sound barrier. A literal wall of air that slams back at you at roughly 1,225 kilometers per hour, or 761 miles per hour. Noble decided that this time, he would lead the project, not drive. He assembled a team. The key figure was aerodynamicist Ron Ayers. He was the one who had to solve a problem no one had solved before. How would a car behave when it was hit by its own shockwaves? Any miscalculation, and the car could lose control or simply take off, becoming an unguided missile. They needed a special kind of pilot. The team interviewed many, but the choice fell on Andy Green. And not because he was a racing driver, he wasn't. He was a combat pilot, a man who dealt with supersonic speeds every day. He understood the physics, he understood shockwaves, and, crucially, he had the ironclad discipline to follow instructions to the letter. In this game, improvisation meant death. Then, there was the other huge problem: money. The project was so ambitious and so risky that major corporate sponsors were terrified. ThrustSSC became the people's record. The team raised funds by selling merchandise, through small donations, even at school fairs. Every child who bought a toy model of the car became a part of the project. This was a British dream, built on pure enthusiasm. The heart of this beast wasn't one heart, but two Rolls-Royce Spey turbofan engines. These weren't special, they were the exact same engines used in the F-4 Phantom II fighter jet. The team literally pulled them from a decommissioned aircraft. Together, they generated 110,000 horsepower. To put that in perspective, that's more power than the entire starting grid of a Formula One race, combined, several times over. And they were thirsty. At full power, the ThrustSSC burned 18 liters, nearly 5 gallons, of jet fuel every second. That's like emptying an entire car's gas tank in 3 seconds. But power was only half the battle. The main problem was aerodynamics. At 1,200 kilometers per hour, you don't just drive, you punch through the air. Ron Ayers and his team spent thousands of hours running computer simulations. They discovered something terrifying. When the car reaches the speed of sound, it forms a shockwave, a wall of compressed air, at its nose. But then, as it breaks through, that wave travels with it. Worse, a pocket of supersonic air forms under the car, trying to lift it off the ground. The car wanted to fly. That's why the ThrustSSC looks so strange. It's long and narrow, like a missile, designed to pierce the air with minimal resistance. The pilot's cockpit is wedged between two giant air intakes. Everything in its design was dedicated to one thing: staying on the ground. Downforce was critical. The next problem, the wheels. How do you transfer all that power to the ground? The answer: you don't. At over 10,000 revolutions per minute, any rubber tire would simply disintegrate from the centrifugal force. So ThrustSSC had no tires. Its wheels were solid, forged discs of high-strength aluminum alloy. They didn't roll across the desert in the conventional sense. They bit into it like blades. They were designed to withstand rotating 50 times faster than your car's wheels on the highway. And finally, how do you steer it? Even that was backwards. ThrustSSC steers not with its front wheels, but with its rear wheels. It sounds insane, but at supersonic speeds, it's the only way to maintain stability. If the front wheels turned, the slightest movement would result in an instant, catastrophic spin. The rear wheel steering acted like a rudder on a rocket, stabilizing its course. Andy Green's cockpit was like a fighter jet's, full of sensors, monitors, and a control yoke that demanded surgical precision. The battlefield was the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, a perfectly flat, hard, and long, over 20 kilometers, dry lake bed. The team spent weeks preparing the track, hand-picking every single pebble that could become a deadly projectile at that speed. The tension was rising. They weren't alone. Nearby, in the same camp, was the American team of Craig Breedlove with his car, the Spirit of America. This was a race not just against the sound barrier, but against competitors. The first attempts were alarming. The car was unstable. At speeds approaching Mach 1, Andy Green was fighting a machine that was trying to tear itself from his control. The team worked day and night, making tiny adjustments to the suspension and aerodynamics. Every run was a step into the unknown. And then, D-Day arrived, October 15, 1997. The rules for a world record, 2 runs, in opposite directions, completed within 1 hour. The record is the average of the two. Run 1. Andy Green hits the afterburners. The car leaps. Cameras on the ground capture the unbelievable. A visible shockwave cone trailing the car. Seconds later, the team back at base hears a loud, double crack. The sonic boom. They had done it. The car had officially broken the sound barrier. But that was only half the job. They had less than an hour to prepare the car for the return run. The clock was ticking. And then, the second start. ThrustSSC tears through the sound barrier once more. When the dust settled and the data was confirmed, the official result was announced. For the first time in human history, a land vehicle had officially moved faster than sound. This wasn't just a new record. This was the Apollo project for land transportation, an engineering breakthrough that proved limits only exist to be broken. ThrustSSC became a symbol of what a small, but utterly determined, team of enthusiasts could achieve. More than 25 years have passed. The record for ThrustSSC still stands. Why? Because it is incredibly difficult, dangerous, and expensive. The project's spiritual successor, the Bloodhound, which also involved Noble and Green, has for years tried to raise the funds to beat their own record and reach 1,000 miles per hour, 1,600 kilometers per hour, but has faced immense financial struggles. Today, the ThrustSSC sits in a museum, black, menacing, and silent. It will never run again, but it remains a permanent monument to human ingenuity, courage, and the obsession with one simple question: what if? It's proof that sometimes, to reach for the sky, you don't have to leave the ground at all.